record to this computer. And our goal is to pick up where we left off on Wednesday. So I'm going to share my screen. I think there's a way. Yeah, what I figured out the other day is I can share a portion of the screen, right? Yeah, that portion, good. So I can put this here. You can see my Visual Studio. And dev. And okay, I was reading about the extended UTXO model. That's good. But we specifically want to look at localhost. And yeah, we're good. Okay. So let me just bring this over here. All right, and this is where we left off the other day. So we made a few steps, that was great. And if I go here, let me make this fill things up properly. First, let's go, we left some notes to ourselves the other day too. So we left a note in the About page. We said that our next step is to get background images working, and we can look at the config file. And then we also said that on the blog page, we want to I thought we wrote a note here about responsive design. So we'll go in and, oh, you know where it is? It's on the blog card module. Yeah, okay. So 2 goals for today. Sorry, it took me a minute just to remember where these notes were. 1 note is here. We're going to work on the responsive design of these blog cards to make them look just as good on mobile as they do on a desktop web browser. And then we want to look at the About page, and we want to get these background images working. Let me make sure I have chat open just so I can keep up with that. So, okay, I've got my chat window open here. But also, obviously, both of you ask questions anytime. And I know we're waiting for Faye, but I know that Faye can catch up on this later. So yeah, let's start with the background image piece, because Buki, this was your question, and this is where we want to focus now. Buki, did you have any time to like read this documentation here? It's okay if you didn't. I just want to know. I just don't want to repeat myself. And how did it go?
Hi, Mr. James.
Yeah, I got you.
So I went through the documentation and I didn't understand the tailwind.config.js file. I was to edit the inbuilt background theme, but I didn't see a similar, what's the word? A similar file structure in mind. So I just decided to not mess things up.
That's such a good answer. Perfect. Okay, so thanks for taking a look. And yeah, that makes sense. I had a hard time really wrapping my brain around what tailwind.config was doing at first. So this is perfect. This is what we can do together right now. and I'm glad you took a look. So let's try to make this work. And the good news is actually, once you get the hang of this file, there's a lot of stuff we can do in here. So as a matter of fact, what I'm thinking is after we do this background image piece, let's also look at how to add custom fonts to this project, just because it's another thing we can do in the Tailwind config file. There's actually a whole lot of things you can do in this file, but we'll just focus on 2 of them right now. Background images first. So let's just go into the file structure. We know that we have this image here. It's this one, right? We want this to be the background image for the about page. And the truth is, it is already. I mean, this is working. I really like how it looks, but what we saw on Wednesday is it's not working perfectly because it was kind of covering up. And remember, we saw the text showing up here, but then it seemed somehow like this image was covering up that text. And that's the problem we're trying to solve right now. And what using this background images piece is going to do is it's going to help us solve that problem, right? And once you know how background images work, then you have a lot of flexibility. So let's set this up. So I'm reading here, it looks like we want to go into module exports, which is already what we see here. Module exports is the top level key for this object that we're exporting from the Tailwind config file, right? And then it's the extend section that we're looking for, right? I see the word extend here. Let me make this a little bigger. I see the word extend on line 14, and I see it here, right? But I also see that it's inside of theme. Where's theme? Right here, line 5. Okay, good, right? So what you can see is that theme is a top level object. Inside of theme, we have a container. We have a font family. We have this extend. And then this curly bracket lines up with this one. So I'm actually going to tab this back one so I can see how it lines up right there. So it's inside of these curly brackets that we want to add some information about our background images. And hi, Faye. I think Faye just showed up. Just say hi, and we are recording, just so you can catch up. We haven't done too much yet. All I did is kind of reviewed where we left off on Wednesday. So we're jumping into background images, and we're going to try to make this work. So inside of extend, once again, one of the things we can do is we can add this background image object. Let me just copy this code right here and plop it in right here. Okay, background image. This is an arrow function, basically, right? And it takes us to these 2, but we want to use our own. So let's call this the about smile, right? We can call it whatever we want. That's just how we're going to refer to it. And there's a colon after that. Okay. And then there's a URL after that with parentheses, right? So far, so good. That's all going to be wrapped in quotes, and we can have a trailing comma there. Now, what is this URL? Well, this is where using next, it makes it kind of interesting, because next takes care of a lot of routing for us. And what it allows us to do is to say, all right, anything in this public folder, I can actually access that asset simply by putting a slash here and then writing the name of that asset. That's all. okay? So in the official documentation, you might see a longer URL here. And it's actually possible to use some public URL from somewhere else on the internet, right? HTTP:/ and then some web address that has an image that you want to use. But local to our project, the beauty of using Next is that it abstracts away a lot of our routing. We just write a / and then the file name we're looking for. That's actually all we need to do. Now it's a matter of how do we use this. So I'm going to save this file. Oops, save this file. And hi, Faye, can you hear us? I'm going back to the documentation. And basically what this is telling me is that once I do this, these classes will take the form of bg-key, okay? So if whatever key you write right here. Hey, Faye, it's good to hear your voice. And we've been recording. We're just getting started on using the background images like we talked about Wednesday, and you'll be able to catch up. I think you've only missed like 5 minutes or so. So let's try this. We used the key about smile. So we should be able to use BG about smile, as you see right here, as our class. Let's go try that. Over here on about. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to make a new page just to test this. So here, let's just go, let's call this bgtest.js, right? And all this is doing, Buki, one of the things you said, right, is it's hard to know when you should test something because you don't want to break it. So one thing I like to do is just make a separate page where I can go in and break a few things and make sure I'm understanding how it works. Okay. So let's do this. So this is what we're going to say is, this is my background test. I'm going to save this. And then if I go to localhost / bg test, localhost bg test, of course, I'll just see, look, this is my background test. No big deal. And if I put some classes here in this div, so for example, class name equals BG, I'm going to make an ugly color here just to show you, BG yellow 500.
Mr. James.
Yeah, Faye.
Sorry for interrupting you. I just made a push now. I don't know if you mind pulling it so you can get the changes, like, because I was working on my own end on the responsive.
Oh, great. Okay, so you just made a push like within the last few minutes?
Yeah, just now, like right now.
Okay, let me get that before we keep going. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off my server for just a minute. I'm gonna write git pull. And we're good. Okay, so now I have your changes here. You can see there was a little change to layout. You made a couple of changes to type, and you made a bunch of changes to blog page. Perfect. Any surprises there? Good deal. All right, and yeah, actually at the start of this session, I did a git pull and we didn't see any changes. So this is nice for us to see this here. So we should be good to go moving forward. All right, so now I'm going to get my server going again. And when I go back to this page and I reload, you can see that color right there. Well, whoops, where'd it go? Let me refresh. Let's see that again. You know what? It might be behind the toolbar. Let me watch this. So you could see how I can't see this class right now for some reason. If I put margin top 10 and save it, does it show up? Why am I not seeing this? That's weird. Oh, nice. Faye. Okay, very good. All right, we'll get back to this in just a second. Cool. But why isn't BG test working? Hmm. All right, there it is. All right, yeah, maybe, you know what? Maybe MT10 wasn't even enough. It might have still been behind. If I say MT20 here. Ah, there it is. Okay, so this yellow band here was hidden behind the green band at the top of the screen. Even when I had the top margin, MT10, it was still hidden back there. But when I did a higher number, 20, now I can see it. Obviously, this is not what I want. I want this thing to fill up the whole page vertically once we put an image in there, right? So just to show that, and I'm just playing around just to show you a few things that can happen. But let's say H screen, which means that the height of this div is going to fill up the whole page. Save that. And now you can see that yellow color filling up the whole screen with this at the bottom. And still the text now is stuck behind this top bar right here. So if I want to be able to see that, I'm going to put padding. Let's just put P20 around this whole thing, actually, which will give it padding on all sides. And now you can see the text because there's padding from the top of the page and from the side. All right, so that's all well and good. But the reason we're doing this is because we want to test this background image here. So let's do that, right? Instead of BG yellow 500, let's now go back to our file. We made a BG called about smile right here. Well, let's see if this works. I'm going to cross my fingers and I'm going to replace yellow 500 with about smile. Save this and drum roll. Ooh, actually, can you see that? Can you see how it worked? All right, who can diagnose this? You in the chat or by unmuting. What do you see happening right here?
Are you asking us?
Can you tell what's happening here?
But okay? Are you asking a question? Oh,
Sorry, Faye, what was the question?
I'm asking, like, what you're saying, is it a question? Like, are you
Oh yeah, I
asking
was
a
asking a question. Yeah. I was asking. And Buki's right. And Buki in the chat says the image needs to fit on the screen, right? Can you see? We're actually seeing the very top left-hand corner of this image right now. Oh wow, it's a big file, and we're it's not. It's so big, and we're zoomed way in. So now we need to fit this thing. Okay, that's the next challenge for us here. So what are we going to do about this? And this is the part that actually took me a while to figure out the first time. First of all, let's look at background size. Let's just start moving around and seeing what we see. I think this has something to do with background size, right? The size of the image is too big. So let's see. Maybe some of these will work. Controlling the background size of an element's background image. Yep, that's what we want to do. This says BG Auto will display the background image at the default size. This one says it scales it until it fills the background layer. And this one scales it to the outer edges without cropping or stretching. I'm not even sure what that sentence means. So one thing I like to do is just try things. All right, so let's just try each of these. I'm going to type BG Auto, then BG Cover, then BG Contain, and we're going to see which one, if any, we like best. So let's go try this. Back here, let's say BG Auto first. Let's save that and see if it makes a difference. What's up, Buki? All right.
Yeah, I had some issues with my internet.
With what? Say again.
With my internet. I
Oh,
have to connect using my phone.
shoot. Okay. Can you see? Are you able to keep up with what we're doing right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So what I did so far is I tried BG Auto, and it doesn't seem like it made any difference. Fair enough. Let's try BG Cover instead. Instead of BG Auto, BG Cover. Save that. Go back and take a look. Okay, that seems pretty good, right? But just because I'm curious and I like to tinker, let's also try BG Contain because I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between cover and contain. So I'm going to go back here one more time. Cover looks pretty good. What's contain going to do? That looks okay too, but do you see what happens here? Is it actually repeats the image down at the bottom so we can see this top bit again. And that's probably not what I want. So it seems to me that the best of these three for our purposes was BG Cover. So I'm going to stick with that for now, but I'm going to remember that I made this choice just in case it gets buggy later and I have to come back and fix it. All right, so let's go with BG Cover, save that, take another look. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Any questions so far?
Okay, so I have a question now. I created a cover image for this particular div. If I created another div, will this background image still work for that div? Or
That's what
how
we
does
get.
it?
Yeah, let's test that next. So that's such a good question. And so I want to answer that question in two parts. First of all, I want to figure out if doing it this way solves our problem from Wednesday, right? I want to figure out if at least we can see the page like you wanted to. But then you also have this question about, okay, what about other divs? How do I think about the background of divs that are maybe on top of or inside of this one? Okay, so let's now, right?
Exactly.
And remember, I'm playing around with BG test right now just because I didn't want to break the about page. But now I'm feeling pretty confident that we can take what we just did, which wasn't that much, right? This was actually pretty limited. Let's just take this line right here and let's move this over to the about page, right? This is really all I need is BG about smile, BG cover, screen height, and we can talk about getting rid of these. And let me actually show you what happens real quick. If I get rid of H screen and save this, notice that it now just it's only as big as the content I need inside of it. Okay, so this is not filling the screen. It is doing exactly what we want it to, but because the size of this div is based upon how much is inside of it, we're just not seeing the whole image, right? So that's why I did H screen right here. And there's other ways I could do this. I could do like H100. Oh, no, actually, never mind. H96. Whoops. Might do something, but you know what? I don't want to overcomplicate things. I'll leave this for you to play with. Let's do H screen for now, and that's good enough. So let me grab this, copy it into our about file. And where am I copying this? I'm going to copy it into the main div that's enclosing this whole page right here. And then before I go any steps further, I'm going to get rid of this piece right here, right? Because what we just did with the background image is basically replacing what you had here on lines 12 through 20. So let's get rid of that,
Yes.
right? And save this. And before I forget, let me just delete this BG test file. We don't need it anymore. That was just our sandbox, right? That was our safe place to play around with something new. But now that we got it working, we can head over, right? Obviously, it can't find that page anymore. When I go to about, that looks pretty good. Notice also, because I threw in this P20, I like how this looks better already, because remember how all this stuff was really smushed against the side of the screen? So hopefully you see that that looks a little bit better already.
Yes.
I do think there's too much space here at the top, right? So let me fix that for just a minute too. Let's see. Let's instead say PX is 20, that's fine. But maybe we don't need any extra PY. Ooh, interesting. Oh, okay, so now, excellent, okay. Now the problem is we've got some conflicting styles. And Buki, you are absolutely right in the way you are using styles right here. If we were using regular JS, or sorry, regular CSS. But because we're using Tailwind for this project, a lot of these styles are now conflicting with Tailwind. There's no right answer here. Okay, we're both right. It's just that we have to choose one of these answers. Okay, and because we're using Tailwind, I'm gonna remove all of your styles here, and I'm gonna try to recreate them quickly with Tailwind instead. Okay.
Okay.
Not
No
because
problem.
I want to be really clear. It's not because this is the only right way to do it. It's just one way, and because we're using it for this project, that's the direction we're going to go. So you've got styles.text, styles.one, phrase, location, right? All of this is imported from about.module.css. So let me open that, and let's just do each of these things. So some of these are really easy, right? Like one just means the color is blue. So let's just replace styles.one with class name equals, and that was a text color, right? So text blue 700, for example. Right? And so we should still see, yeah, Africa's is still blue, so we're fine there. Okay. What else? Styles.text. Text, position relative. Okay, and this Z index piece we no longer need, right? Because we figured out how to put the image in the background. The margin top is 10%. That's part of the reason we're seeing this blank space up here. Position relative, we're actually going to be able to ignore that as well, but we are just going to want to make the font bigger. All right. First, let me just delete that and delete, oops, this, and give myself some empty quotes here so I can fill in some class names later. Save this, save this. And how we looking? All right, kind of like we expected. So now we got rid of the white space, but as you can see, I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but I can see the very bottoms of these letters kind of poking out below. So actually, I do need that padding at the top. So let me get rid of the X here. So now the padding is on all sides again, not just the X axis. Save this. And okay, that looks okay, but I got rid of the font sizes here. So this is where I might want to go back and say, okay, let's do text 2XL. Now it's bigger again. If I wanted even bigger than that, I could say 4XL. All right. So far, so good. And Faye, stop me if you have a question, okay?
No problem.
So real quick, phrase, location, link. All right, well, for the link to learn more, that's going to go somewhere here on the site. So one thing we're actually going to want to do is import link from next link. Whoops. And I'm going to change. Well, you know what? No, I'm going to leave that anchor there, but I am going to wrap this in a link with href equals. For now, you know what? I'm just going to put a slash here and make this go back home. But we are later going to add a learn more button if we want to. Move this up inside of that. That's fine. And now I don't need the href anymore, but actually the way next works is basically the a tag can still be used to give us styles. So the link gives us the routing part and the a gives us the styles. And if I go back here for link, we want this to be a button. Okay, so let's do that. Actually, if I just get rid of this, learn more is not going to be a button anymore. Let's save this. Look at the page. Learn more is just some big text. It does work, right? It's a working link, but I want it to be a button. I want it to have round edges, border radius. The font is already big, but I can mess with that. Yeah, there's going to be padding, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what does Tailwind give us about buttons? All right. Notice that buttons, buttons are not really built into Tailwind. This is one way that this is different from Bootstrap, for example, right? Bootstrap has a button class that we can use, and right, we're all familiar with kind of what the Bootstrap button looks like. We see those all over the internet because a lot of people use Bootstrap. Basically, what we have right now is a chance to design our own button to surround this thing. So let's just, it looks like we maybe want to give this thing a background of blue. Let's try that. So a class name BG Blue 700. Whoops. Back here. Okay, that worked. But obviously we're going to want padding, which is exactly what you have here. Maybe P3 will be enough. I don't know. P3, yeah, we could do more, we could do less. P5 if I decide I want more. I'm just doing trial and error until I like it, right? Let's say radius. If I go back to Tailwind, something about border radius. What are my choices? I could just write rounded and then MD or LG or something like that. Let's just try writing rounded first and see if that looks enough like a button. Yeah, it's a little bit rounded. Maybe I want more rounding than that, so I can say rounded dash LG. All right, and you decide if you like how that looks. Now I want the font color inside to be white, like you did right here. So let's do that. Let's write white. Okay, that looks good. And then one thing I like to do with buttons, you can get rid of this later if you want to, but I like to give them a little hover behavior, and hover is built in to Tailwind. So what if when I hover BG blue, it's going to get lighter? And what if when I hover text, the text goes blue? So watch this behavior. Okay.
Mr. James,
Yeah.
it seems with Tailwind you have to depend a whole lot on inline styling. In the long run, is it very, how would I put it? Is it the norm, industry norm, to use inline styling for every single thing?
So if you really want to start a fight with developers, you can go ask that question on Twitter and you can see what happens, right? There's no one right answer. And there's a lot of people who feel really passionately one way or another. The most important thing is that it's up to you to decide what your favorite workflow is. All right. And so what I'm showing you, right, I happen to be showing you Tailwind right now. The main reason I chose Tailwind is because it makes it easier for us to really start thinking in components, and it makes it easier than Bootstrap, for example, to customize. If you're already an expert on CSS, you might not want to use what I'm showing you right here, right? You might say, all right, yeah, having separate component files is better. It's what you said about these looking like inline styles is true, in that these are similar to inline styles. But what we're really doing, right? These are utility classes, right? So it has some things in common with inline styles, or even using a solution like styled components. But it's also different in terms of, I don't have to mess with style brackets and variables like I would. I'm just using class names. Nor do I have to have some separate, some separate section of this file just to handle all of my styles. I actually I like styled components. I like the idea of how it works. Yeah, it's just another flavor of how to organize this stuff. Yeah, are you feeling like your preference would probably be just to stick with the CSS modules?
No, I think I would really, really go with this Tailwind. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? And what I recommend is do one project with Tailwind, but then next time you do a project, try to not use it and just really see what you like better.
Yes, possibly.
Oh, nice. And Juan's got a button thing here. Cool. Yeah, I'll follow up with that. All right, we have a working button. It doesn't look exactly like before just because I'm playing, right? So you can play with the styles here to make it look like you want to. You can play with these styles here. Notice that I gave our top header some styles, but I haven't done anything with the paragraph yet. I'm going to leave that to you, right? I'm just going to leave some empty quotes here that you can go fill in. And then also, what's in location? Oh, you just had some margin, right? Okay, so we actually don't need that at all. Let me just get rid of that div and that one. Cool. So now we are fully relying on Tailwind now. Let me save this. Take a look. Look at that. Isn't that great? So now this is covering up that. That makes total sense. Let's see here. We had this span. And let me put this in here. And you can, if you want just the word Africa to be one color and then Blockchain Center for Developers, we can fix that later. For now, I'm just putting those together so they're on one line. And the font size is inherited from here. That's why this paragraph is huge. But what might be better is if I put text for XL in here. Just put it here. And then if I put text like LG in here, see how that looks? All right, now we got two separate sizes, but we've still got this overlap problem. So we've got a paragraph, and then we've got this button. Just gonna line up our tabs here. That looks good. This is all inside of this. Now we probably don't need this div for now if we just want to put this stuff on top. But let me use this div for something specific. And let me, why is that? Let's do this. You know what? I'm going to make this a section. Because the problem I'm trying to fix right now is how the button overlaps with the text. So let's put a section here, and then let's put another section, whoops, section below that. Put that inside. Save. Oops, div. This div goes with this div. Oh, right, but I replace section, save. Things are still overlapping. And the reason is we've got this outer div with this. Yeah. I wish I could, I'm actually not, it's an easy thing to fix, but I'm not sure why we're getting this overlap. So I'm just going to fix it anyway right now. Let's just give this a margin of 5, and let's give this also a margin of, whoops, a margin of 5. And that should solve the overlap problem. Yeah, good enough. Maybe I want a little bit more room, right? So I could say M5, or I could say MX is 5, but MY is more than that. Okay, so you can play with the spacing. I'm happy enough with how this looks. All right, but finally, Buki, your other question was about what about additional divs on top of this div, right?
Yes.
First of all, let me show you that we can take this, everything that's inside of this big div, we can wrap it in another div. We've got two sections inside of there, and that's great. All right, and let's move those up into the new div we just made. And let's make this div a background color. Let's just say BG white for a minute, just so we can see the shape of this thing. All right. And look, this button is still a little unruly. Did I forget to delete something else here? No, that's fine. But we do want this white container to hold all of this. So the first thing you see obviously is that I can put a div on top of this. And right, why isn't that big enough? If I say height auto. Let me just give it a minimum height. I'm not happy with how that button is behaving, but I need to go and think about why that's happening. But for now, I can just give this div, this enclosing div, a height. And one thing that I think looks really cool is if you change the BG opacity. How opaque is it, right? Because right now, this is just blocking the photo. But if I say BG opacity 50, now I'm going to be able to see through this div to the one behind it. And, you know, we might want to play with spacing and sizing and all that. Maybe I want this thing to have, to not be so wide. So I could say width is a half. So it only fills up half the page. That looks kind of cool. I could say MX auto to center it. Maybe you like how that looks. And you could do more Y padding, right? We could do pretty big PY, like even more to move it. Oh, no, sorry. Even bigger margin to move it down the page. And there's ways, you know, look at the different ways to justify content so you can see how to maybe center this thing if that's what you want. Just different things to play with. I actually kind of like, we're not talking about responsive design yet, right? We're going to have to go back and make this look better on smaller screens. But I kind of like how this looks. That's pretty neat, right? It's balanced on the page. We've got the woman here, and then we've got a div next to it. Maybe this needs, I think this does want a little bit more padding at the top. So let me give this just a PT of 5. And that's just going to bump things down a little bit. Okay, so we'll play more with this. But the last thing, here's where it gets really interesting. That's fine. I can change the color from white to whatever I want. Play with the opacity level. You can change this number right here to any multiple of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, up to 100. And of course, we can change this color to whatever we want as well. I want it to be some light color of blue, right? You can play with that. Let's go back and think about background images for another moment. These are great pictures. This is fun. Let's just use this one. I don't know. Let's use this. Let's make this. I don't actually really care what it's called. And I'm going to delete this about module for now because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to make another background image here. And we're going to use black.jpg this time. Okay. And I can't use the word black because BG black already means the background color black. Okay, so what if we call this worker, you know, worker shadow? Well, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to use worker. Now, the way these background images work is they can be used on a full screen div, like we're doing, of course, with this one here that covers the whole screen, right? Height of the screen, it goes all the way across. But let's, oops, and I have to delete this import here because I deleted that file. Save that. Okay, so far so good. But suppose I make another div underneath this one, right? And this is, first of all, let's just put a paragraph here that says, I hope this div is on top, because that was one of the problems we were trying to solve, right? And sure enough, it is. That div is on top, right? It doesn't look like much. It doesn't have a background color. It doesn't have a border or a height or anything like that. But let's now do that part. Class name. And for now, I'm just going to make this a square div, right? I'm not, because this is not part of the final design. I'm just playing right now to show you something. But let's give this thing a BG white again, just so we can see it. Let's give it a width of, well, let's make it nice and big, 96, and a height of 96. And sure enough, there's our white square that I just made. It's a square because the width and the height are the same. Let's give it a little margin on the top to separate it from the one above it. And let's always put a little bit of padding inside so those words are not right against the side. All right, fine. Now, what's really cool is that any div, whether it fills up the whole page or it's a smaller one like this, I can use any of these background classes I make right here. So if I change this to BG worker and save it, now I'm going to see, uh-oh, it didn't work. Oh, you know why that didn't work? Because I didn't save this file yet. So it sees the word worker, doesn't know it, so it doesn't do anything. But if I save this config file now something should show up if I refresh this page. Yeah, now it's working. Now, of course, I'm seeing the same phenomenon as before. All I'm seeing is the top left of this very large photograph. Okay, so once again, just like I used BG cover here, let me just write BG cover here and see how it looks filling up the frame. And sure enough, there it is. All right. This is different from using the image tag. I could just as well, we already imported image here. I could, right below this, make another div. And inside of this div, I could put an image tag, right? Where the source is /black.jpg. And I can give this thing a width. Let's just give it a width of 100 and a height of 100 for now. Save that, right? And so this is that image again. It's not very big. Let me change these to 400s instead. It's also a little bit squished. That's a different, I know we're already over time and I actually have to go. The reason I'm doing this right here is I just want you to see it's a very different thing for the image to be the background of a div and to be able to write on top of it versus placing an image inside of a div and then trying to figure out how to use z indexes to try to put one thing on top of another. All right. This isn't to say that you'll never use the image tag. You absolutely will still use images. Okay. It's just that if your goal is for the image to be the background of a div, now hopefully this makes some sense how you go about doing this. And personally, I think this looks really cool, right? The fact that you have this option of putting text on top of divs, right? Let's just for fun, last thing today, let's make this text white. Okay, and let's move it. Let's try to align it in the center of this, right? So once again, I know I can use MX auto to center it. Oops, nope, that's centering the whole thing. Center. Text. We want text center. Let's put that here. And you can't see that text yet because I also want it to be, I want that text to kind of be down near the bottom just for fun. And I'm just playing right now. This is not important, but I just want you to have some ideas for how you'll play with it. Text justify, right? So align. Oh no, that's not what I want. Vertical alignment. Let me try aligning bottom. Align bottom. Can I put this here? I don't think this is going to work. I'm curious. Still at the top. I think I might want align bottom here. Never, you know what? I'm not going to spend time wrestling with this. I still get confused sometimes about what does what. That's the alignment. We got that part to work. It must be justify content. No, but that's horizontal. Here, this is probably what I want. Align. Let's try content end. You bet, Juan. See you soon. No, it didn't work. Okay, I'm going to go back and play with this. What I'm trying to do here, everybody, is make this text go down here on the bottom of this div. But under pressure of time, I'm not, as you can see, I'm not accomplishing it right now. But I can't help trying. Let me try. Ooh, maybe I needed the word flex here. Hopefully what you're seeing me do is tinker. And if you understand that, you know, obviously, you know, you can do the same. One more thing. I'm going to try place content end. How about that? Nah. All right. I'm going to come back and mess with that later. But you get the idea, right? I can make these divs. I can make my customized backgrounds however I want. and then I can put content inside of them. All right. I'm going to leave this here for now, just in case you want to mess around with it. But obviously this is not a final design yet. I don't like this color blue at all, but I'm going to leave it to you to decide if you want this div to have a background or just to be purely floating on top. Okay. Any questions before I push these changes?
Today's class was really interesting. Thank you. I understood a whole lot. Thank you so much.
Hey. Oh, Buki Faye, I am so excited about this being the style of our class. And I think this is just what we should do moving forward, right? You two go try stuff, you break things, right? You figure out what your questions are, and then you come back with those questions, and we're just going to keep doing this, right? And this is fun. This is real code development. And as we move on, this thing's going to be looking pretty real. We're going to get this site ready.
Yes, I'm excited.
Me too.
Okay,
Hey,
Mr. James. Though I'm having challenges, but it's okay.
Yeah, we didn't get to the responsive part, but we'll do that. That's the first thing we'll do next Wednesday. And I'm pretty excited about how this page is looking here. So we've componentized a few things. These are components, that's good. You can play around with the background images if you want to on this page and spacing, but this is looking nice. This is looking real good. And then if you run out of things to do between now and Wednesday, just drop a line on the Discord and tell me what you've done so far, and what if you need advice on what to do next. I'll be happy to say, hey, go try this or go try that. Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to shut down my server. I'm going to make sure I've saved everything. Oops, save. Good. Add all changes. This is Friday, 19 March dev course. And I'm going to push those. All right, so we're good. So now the repository is up to date with everything Faye has done, and the changes I just made today have now been added to that. All right. For real, be in touch as questions come up. I'm sorry I wasn't so responsive last week. I had a few days away with my family, and then was getting caught up earlier this week. But I'll be more present this weekend and next week. Okay.
Okay, Mr. James. Thank you.
No problem. They are not much really. It's something I can handle.
I need more of that music in my life. I'll tell you that much. All right. Take care, both. I'll see you soon. Bye.